let's get to one of the big topics. Zach, big college sports conferences, the Power Four, which includes the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12, and the ACC, are rolling out a new membership agreement to enforce strict rules on how schools may pay athletes under the upcoming House settlement, which allows schools to share up to $20.5 million with their athletes. The agreement targets extra payments, especially booster funded name, image, and likeness deals through a Deloitte run system called NIL Go that will scrutinize deals for fair market value. Schools that refuse to sign this contract face severe consequences, including potential expulsion from their conference, which would bar them from competing against other top teams. For a school like the University of Tennessee, this could mean being forced out of the SEC if it leans its on its if it leans on its own state law, Senate Bill number 536, to dodge these rules. The agreement also requires schools to settle disputes throughout arbitration rather than lawsuits, even if state laws like Tennessee's permit bypassing the settlement's restrictions. The membership agreement, still in draft form, awaits approval from Judge Claudia Wilkin for the House settlement, with a critical deadline of July 1st, 2025, for schools to sign. The new College Sports Commission, led by a yet-to-be-named CEO from outside college sports, will take over the NCAA's outdated enforcement system. You and I have been talking about that a lot, Zach, wielding significant authority to issue penalties and make final ruling on rule violations. Tennessee's Senate Bill number 536, which allows for schools to ignore the settlement's payment caps and protects them from penalties, directly challenges the new system, creating a standoff. Legal experts question whether public universities like Tennessee can legally agree to ignore the state law, and some school leaders are wary of the agreement's enforceability. If Tennessee refuses to sign, citing its state law, the SEC could vote to expel them, cutting off access to lucrative rivalries, shared revenue, and the conference's prestige. Zach, if that happens and Tennessee is cut out of the SEC, could they join the Big Ten?
Okay, so just before I answer that question, just to clarify, basically this Deloitte run system would evaluate NIL deals and saying, like, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense.
What they would do is, they apparently, from what I've read, they have gone to endorsement deals in the NFL and the NBA and said, how much are these professional athletes getting paid for endorsement deals similar to this? One of the most popular endorsement deals is a player, goes to a car dealership and they show up for an event and people come to the event and the player gets paid, $5,000 to do it. They would look at deals similar to that made recently in the NBA or the NFL and try to say, whether it's fair or not. And this would only be on, and Penn State guy said it, this would only be on deals exceeding $600. So that's kind of what it's getting at there, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. And basically what the counter thought with the other schools is that they would basically say, you can't do that. And like, we're going to fight against any type of legal laws that are passed.
Yeah, so basically what this new part of it is saying is that, because everybody was upset that, like, oh, they're just going to sue and get out of it. Well, they're saying if you try to take legal action against the conference, you have no standing. You're out, right? If you try to do it against the Power Four conference, you are out of that conference. You can't play anybody in those conferences anymore. You're out. Either you're independent or go join another conference.
So basically, the schools are like, we want to do it our way. But the government is like, no, you need to do this. Am I understanding that right? Or am I missing it?
No, yeah, you're correct. What they're trying to do is they're trying to take away power at the state level, because one of the biggest issues right now is that something can get done either federally or by the NCAA or by this new College Sports Commission, but then schools just go to their state level and the state passes something and then they can't do anything about it.
Oh, I
see.
Which
is essentially what Tennessee was trying to do here, where they say, well, we'll just get the state level to let us do whatever we want and pay however much we want.
Oh, I see. So basically Tennessee is trying to skirt the rules by going to state. I totally misunderstood this thing.
It's the same thing Missouri did early on when Missouri said, well, we're going to pay high school athletes NIL. Like we made a rule so we can pay high school athletes NIL if they're committed to Missouri. And it was like, okay, well that's not fair because if you're from Missouri, you're obviously going to go to Missouri because you can start making NIL earlier. Well, then you saw other, states do it. USC, California, I think did it. Texas, I think did it, and eventually it became a competitive advantage for those states because you could you could start making NIL early.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I totally misunderstood this before.
I've been reading about this all day. So
Yeah. Did you get an honorary degree in this? Like what?
Surprisingly, ESPN, Yahoo, and The Athletic did not offer that. So
Yeah. Okay. So to your question, no, we don't want Tennessee.
no,
That's all
it's
I
not.
got.
Do we want them? Could they join the Big Ten?
No. No.
Okay, why not?
Because they're Tennessee. No,
Yeah.
that's a terrible reason. Actually, no, it's not a bad reason. So so for one, if Tennessee goes that route, do we really think the Big Ten wants to deal with that type of drama? No.
If the way I'm reading this is correct, you would be barred not only from not playing that conference anymore that you were kicked
Yeah.
out of, you would be barred from playing all of those conferences because this is
Yeah.
the essentially what is happening is the NCAA is incompetent, can't do anything, and they're stupid. Shocker. We've been saying it for a while. And most of college football has been saying it for a while. And so basically the Power Four is like, guys, they're so incompetent that we need to come together and do our own thing. And so if I'm reading everything correctly, it's saying that if Tennessee is kicked out of the SEC, they would be kicked out of the ACC, the Big 12, and the Big 10, and they would not be allowed to play those teams anymore. Like the only team they could play that is like power conference level would be Notre Dame. The rest of their conference would be like MAC teams. You're not making TV revenue off playing MAC teams.
No. Well, and Vandy, if they would go this route too, but
Yeah, yeah.
I
Form your own Tennessee conference. Go for it,
well,
guys.
and I think this is the thing, like it would not only bar them from playing, but kind of the stench of their insubordination, like it just makes you like unattractive to partner with in any way, right? Everybody, every coach is trying to is advocating for more regulation in NIL because it is a nightmare from every level and it is not being used the way it was intended. The way it was intended was different businesses and corporations and car dealerships, they sign players to deals. They are using the name, image, and likeness. What is happening is booster groups are being rallied to pay millions of dollars to players. That's not NIL. Like that's just not NIL. That's not what it was ever meant to be. But that's what it became because there's no regulation because spoiler alert, the NCAA stinks. And now the state government is trying to make it possible for a team or a couple teams to do what they want to do and disregard any regulations that the rest of the Power Four would come at. So, could Tennessee join the Big Ten if that's how Tennessee's going to do it? No. The Big Ten's going to look at them and be like, we don't want you. We don't want those shenanigans. We have 18 of the best teams. We have the best TV deals. We don't need you.
And it would also essentially have the Big Ten start, ruining relationships with the ACC and the Big 12 and the SEC. What happens if they took Tennessee, then the SEC, and well, we're not playing you anymore. Good luck playing your own, and you're out of the college football playoffs. Like go do your own thing. And I couldn't see the Big Ten doing that. That does not seem like a move they would do. A few questions in the chat I want to get to really fast. HJG says actual transparency will go a long way, but limiting payments won't survive the first lawsuit. Hope something works. I think that's the point. They're trying to get rid of the lawsuit from happening altogether. They're saying we're going to limit payments in Tennessee. If you try to sue us and apply your own state law, you're out of the conference, right? And it'd be the same thing if Michigan State did it. It'd be the same thing if Oregon did it. It'd be the same thing if Arizona did it, right? I'm not saying those teams are doing it. I'm just saying like those are other Power Four teams. Dave says Tennessee to the new Pac-12. That was my other thought. And Dave brought it up. I didn't think of this until Dave brought it up. What if like Tennessee and Oregon State and Washington State and Florida State and Utah, like what if they got together and started their own like 8-team conference? And they were like, "Screw you! We're gonna pay everybody whatever we want." That would actually be hilarious if they did.
I don't have words for that. I
Right?
I,
Yeah, that'd
I
be a whole new college football we would not be ready for. So, the Penn State guy says, but what happens when majority of Power Four schools refuse? They can't kick them all out and have no conference left. I, if there was a majority, sure,
yeah,
but I think the majority of Power Four schools though want this. I mean, you hear a lot of coaches complaining about it, right?
yeah,
Luke Fickell is tired of it. Kirby Smart was just talking about it the other day. Ryan Day has talked about it. Brett Bielema was talking about Kirkson. I mean, I think the majority. This is just me. I think the majority of Power Four schools would want something like this to happen because
yeah,
they don't want to keep shelling out $40 million for a roster. And you would think Tennessee would be the same way with what they just had happen with Nico Iamaleava, but apparently they did not learn their lesson and they just want to keep shelling out money to people. And it's
yeah,
like, okay, which is interesting to me. But do you have any
yeah.
thoughts on that before I go to the next comment?
Well, I was just say the power brokers, like the power coaches, Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, James Franklin, Sharon Moore to an extent. All the big names, Dabo Sweeney, like they don't want what's going on in Tennessee. They want regulation.
Yeah, I agree. The Penn State guy says, hypothetically, if Deloitte was in power now, can they prevent Jackson Cantwell from getting 2.5 million? So what they would do is they would make him ineligible if they found it to be too much. That's the other piece of this here. They're not kicking players out of the NCAA altogether and say you can't play football. What they would essentially be saying is you cannot, like, you are suspended until you stop making this money. Which sounds like that has a little bit more staying power, but it sounds like it has a lot more staying power if the schools can't sue you, right? Um, yeah. And then Billy Tuesday says, I think once a player legally challenges an NIL restriction, he'd win. That's the other piece of this that I didn't see a whole lot of. It talks a lot about schools challenging it. I don't know if a player challenged it, if they would be challenging it in the name of the school as well. That's a very sticky
Yeah.
situation and a good point you bring up there, Billy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Um, Penn State guy says, I bet you don't see Dan Lanning asking for NIL regulations. I mean, I don't know. I don't know where Dan Lanning stands on a lot of this stuff because on one hand, I like Oregon does have so much money and they're able to pay so much, but at the same time, like they have to pay so much just to get players to come out and visit sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Like with how far away it is. Now they do a wonderful job once they get players there. That's why they can oftentimes close the deal, but it's, Oregon is so far away for players in Texas and Georgia and Florida that they got to do a lot just to be able to get the players there.
But Oregon can be creative because again, NIL is meant for legitimate like name, image, and likeness. Well, Oregon still has Nike money. Guess who runs a lot of commercials and ads for Nike? Is Nike, right? So you just ad campaigns all the time. Oregon players, like I don't know. Dante Moore's gonna have a shoe, right?
Oh, Naeem Offord has a shoe.
Oh, does he really?
Well, he's going to. That was a part of his recruiting pitch that
Yeah,
was reported.
which like that's the thing. Like you can still make bank depending on where you go to school. So Dan Lanning actually might do better with a restricted NIL.
Hmm. Maybe. I mean, because that would be a big piece of it too. Like, I mean, Nike shells out a lot of money to get their play basketball players and football players and stuff. So, I mean, it would be possible for them to say, yeah, this is just one of our athletes. And if Oregon said, yeah, our only college athletes are from Oregon, that'd be huge. So, yeah, especially if you do shoes and everything like that.
Yeah.
Um, Argros says, how hasn't Maryland cashed in on Under Armour yet? I've wondered that a lot too. I guess their owner just or founder or whatever just doesn't
Who who
doesn't
would
have the
their
passion for a national championship like Phil Knight does. But I don't know. That's always a interesting one to me.
I think the problem is they haven't had a player that they could really market yet. Like Malik Washington
Yeah,
might be the
Talia they
guy.
could have, and they tried to
He was.
Talia.
I mean, they did. He was so well. Sorry, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I like Talia a lot
He was
personally,
good.
but
He was
yeah,
good.
yeah. All right.